Joining us now here in the circle of D1 softball, powered by 643. She is back on the podcast. Of course, she's entering her 19th season at Kentucky, the all-time winningest head coach in Kentucky softball history. She'll be, of course, the host of the SEC tournament this year. I speak of her good friend Rachel Lawson, back by popular demand. People have asked for your return, and here we deliver. Here you are. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thank you. What an intro. But I see you're really busy on Instagram and all that sort of stuff. So you seem to be everywhere.
We try. I try, and it's only going to get busier. So that's all I could say.
That's
It's
awesome.
just going to get busier. But you're busy yourself. I know you're getting ready to, get things going. And you just started practice as we're talking. You just wrapped up practice. How would you describe this group, this 2026 edition of the Kentucky Wildcats?
I really enjoy this group from the standpoint of they came in, we have a lot of new faces. It's, I don't want to say it might be 50-50 kind of, which is kind of unique for us, but it seems to be the way of the world, in college athletics. But I love this group because they're very self-motivated. They really know what they want and they do what they need to do to get after it. So they're people who are craving instruction. They're wanting to just any sort of edge that they can get to improve their game. So it's really fun to be around a group like that.
You were so young a year ago in
Mhm.
a lot of areas, in some key areas. I thought you peaked at the end there. You got to that regional final in Clemson. Have you noticed some of the returners in particular seeing that growth from last year to this year?
Yeah, I'll tell you where we have seen the growth. The head taking the step to get to the regional finals was nice because prior to that, for a couple of years, we were in regionals, but we were just kind of like treading water. So it was nice to be able to take that step the next direction. And I was really pleased with the direction of the pitching staff. So very young pitching staff, and they continued to get better every weekend, which was really nice. So we have a little more experience in that level and we have more depth. So I feel really, really good about that. The other thing that I love is this group seems to be more driven. I think one of the things that happens when you're young and you're inexperienced, it's like you feel like have to have an invitation to be assertive, as opposed to, no, this is what I want and this is what we need to do be as a team for us to get there. And so some of the people who were here last year have taken that step and they really know what they want. They're being assertive about it. They're showing the new people kind of the way that we like to do things at Kentucky softball. So everybody seems to be headed the right direction. So I really appreciate that kind of leadership because anytime the leadership can come from within and you have players pushing each other, that's great. When you're pulling them along, sometimes you get a lot of resistance there from a coaching staff side. So it's really nice to have that support in the locker room from the older kids headed, trying to head to a deep run in the postseason.
You're obviously hosting the SEC tournament this year, which looks like will be the final on-site
Yeah.
SEC tournament before it goes to a neutral site, which is unique in itself. Is that something you bring up to your team at all? If the fact that you're hosting the SEC tournament for extra motivation, or you don't bring that up at all?
Not yet. I will. The SEC tournament is so cool. Obviously, the pinnacle of everything is the World Series, and Super Regionals is fun. But the SEC tournament, it's amazing because you should, especially if you've never been there. But even when you have, it's like you're a kid in the candy store. You walk in and you see that amazing staging, and these players on my team grew up with the TV personalities. They're like, oh my goodness, there's Michelle Smith, and they go down the names and their household names from a entertainment standpoint. Yeah, they knew they were softball players kind of, but they know them as the stars on TV. And so to be able to see them in real life just adds to the excitement of the tournament. So as we get closer and as we're watching them on TV, I'll be like, hey, she's going to be in Lexington in a few weeks and stuff like that. So just to be able to point them out as superstars is going to be cool. But right now, we're just really focusing on ourselves and our core values and the type of team that we want to be, our identity moving forward. So when we hit the field in February, we're a strong unit and we're getting after what we want to get after.
How hands-on are you in the preparation for the SEC tournament, or will you be as hands-on, or do you let other people, the facilities and the administration take it over? I know you told my colleague, right, Rian Podkey, for the fall report on D1 softball about some of the renovations that you're doing for the SEC tournament. Just talk about kind of the process and getting ready for this major event.
I'll tell you, I have not done anything, which if you knew me, it's crazy. I am, obviously I am a control freak. Anyone knows that. And I've really, over the years, worked on that part of me, of being a little more, assertive, but not as aggressive as I have been in the past. But I have not, I'll tell you, I walked up one day and there's a big bulldozer in the outfield. And I'm like, what in the world is going on to my berm, And so here they are making, steps. And then couple weeks later, here comes these huge cranes and it's in the back and I'm like, why are all these cranes going to the back or whatever? They're like, oh, we're making a food court type of area. And then more cranes are coming and they're taking lights down. And I'm like, lights? Why are we taking our lights down? And so we have amazing lights that, do the flashing stuff and all things. And for me, the thing that I've been pushing for a few years is I love our indoor, but it was time for a little bit of an upgrade. And so I had asked for that a few years ago. But and they did it. And I was like, oh my goodness. And so it's just been such a surreal moment that the administration, all the way to the top, through the AD, all the way up to the president's office, they're making all these amazing amenities and upgrades to the facility. They're not doing it for the SEC tournament per se, but just the energy behind the SEC tournament. It's like, hey, we have it now. Let's go ahead and do it. So just to have that kind of support is, if you would have told me this, 25 years ago in women's athletics, I would have thought you were nuts. And just to see it firsthand has been awesome.
It's tremendous. Like I said, it's going to be the last one on site, probably for the foreseeable future when the SEC goes to a neutral site. Is there extra pride in that you could be the last one as a host on a host site, that this will be documented, historic, and want to go out with a great, successful tournament that everybody enjoys?
Yeah, I mean, it has to be. I love softball. I love Kentucky, but I love softball players. I love the sport. I love everything about it. So the pride that we have for the sport of softball, for women's athletics in general, that supersedes anything that selfishly we would do. So we want to make sure we do it right. We want to do it right for Kentucky. We want to do it right for all the other teams in the SEC, the players, the coaches. We want it to be a first rate experience because it's just so cool. And the opportunity to showcase, I love it here. I mean, I've had such a consistent, not only my staff, my coaching staff, everyone sees that on TV, but everybody in operations, facilities, grounds crew, marketing. I mean, all the way up through the AD unit, the continuity at Kentucky is unreal. And just to be able to showcase that in such a wonderful place also really excites me.
It does speak, though, to volumes of the growth of softball and the growth of SEC softball, that here we are talking about a neutral site, kind of like, yeah, I can see that. That makes sense. Where I imagine if this was even brought up 10 years ago, you would have probably scoffed at that, even the idea of that. But that's the way that it is, where there is interest now, where people want to host this on neutral sites.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, women's athletics, everyone knows everybody wants to get behind women's athletics. We're really entering an all-time high era. And obviously, women's basketball had something to do that, but we have record numbers in the sport of volleyball. So exciting. And sometimes, sports in general, college athletics is always exciting, but once basketball season ends, softball rules the airways. And we have a real opportunity to do something special in women's athletics. And yeah, if you would have told me, I remember being in the World Series, obviously years and years and years ago, and Oklahoma City looked very different. And I remember, oh my goodness, they're spray painting the grass so it looks green. And they only, at that time, there was only 4 games on national TV. Um, and it was just a completely different, but you could have never told me back then that it would be at the level where, well, heck, the fact that I'm on this podcast with you right now blows my mind, to be totally honest with you. Like, the fact that we talk about softball all the time is great.
Yeah, you've been a big part of this growth of this podcast. This is the 1002 episode we've done.
Wow.
You've been involved in a lot of them. I think there was one year where I interviewed you from the Houston airport one time, which was the more unique one. But that's like a lifetime ago.
Who got number 1,000? I hope it was somebody really
Beth.
cool.
It was Beth. Beth got
Oh, yeah, she is very cool. So good stuff. I
She's
like
been,
it.
yeah. She was like one of the first guests in the history of the pod. You weren't too far behind. Too far behind. I was like in the mix there on that. So, but you're right. It's the mix now where people that become growth from an interest standpoint, national coverage, and certainly your broadcast is another example of that, because you're one of the top production broadcasts out there with the SEC Network Plus and even the linear stuff It
Mhm.
goes on to the point where the SEC tournament has become a huge TV event, which I'm sure is a big part of all that discussions that the league does. And actually, I'm going to be at SEC Media Days for football in July. And I'm going to try to ask about softball questions. So there you go.
Yes.
I'm going to get to the bottom of
There
it
you
for you, Coach. I'm going to get to the bottom of that when we get there at that time in Tampa. Your roster. I want to start with your pitching staff. You get Sarah back. You got Carson back. You've added Abby Hammond, a freshman. Nutter, another freshman. You added a transfer from Eastern Illinois. And so talk about your pitching staff as a whole here and the identity of it.
I really like our pitching staff. Obviously, everybody has a lot of power, which is nice, but we're all very different. And so we can give different looks and create different matchups as opposed to we've had really good pitching the last few years, but what we haven't had is deep pitching. So, you had one or two pitchers that were taking the brunt of all the innings, and then now you talk about these great teams. The SEC is great, but there's a lot of other softball teams, additional softball teams that really can wear a pitcher down. And so to be able to keep the pitch counts more manageable, to be able to go deep into bullpens and create matchups is just really cool. So love the pitching staff. Love, for example, you use Hammond and Nutter as an example. Those two are very different. One's primarily a power spin pitcher, while the other one can give you like good off speed and some drop balls and keep you in games there. So it's just two very different looks. And then really was pleased with Carson by the end of last year, really had figured some stuff out and has always been very tough. Sarah, obviously, in her innings has had great production. And I really believe Kenzie's going to really turn some heads. Such a cool person, powerful and very competitive. So really love the looks that we're getting there.
Yeah, what led to your decision there? I mean, it's one of the three transfers you have on the roster. You have six freshmen overall on the roster. When you were building this pitching staff, what went into that and making sure that they all fit?
I really try to go after people who complement each other. So you don't want to have too many of the same look because then when you're making a pitching change, you're just giving some of the same things. So obviously the best of the best hitters can make those adjustments, but there are some teams that are very, cookie cutter in what they do. And there's some hitters that really stick with one swing and one swing only and are not as diverse. So the ability to create some matchups, go deeper in the pen, later in innings, that sort of thing, depending on who you're playing, really creates, can really give us an advantage. So working really hard of creating people that can work well together. And I will say, not just their skill set, but their mindset and their attitude. They have been awesome. They work together. They give each other great tips. They do what they need to do. And I've been really pleased with their, not only their work ethic, but their approach and their mindset through the past like 4 or 5 months.
Of course, there'll be one of the catcher, Carly Sleeman, coming over from Central Michigan. 17 homers a year ago, 50 RBIs, 373. How has she fit in? Not just necessarily with her bat, but also learning the pitching staff and building that chemistry.
Well, I'll tell you, she's done a really good job. She's a big game player. You can tell there's a lot of excitement when she gets to scrimmage and when she does it, you really see it. There's a different light in her eyes. She's somebody who really likes to work and she's very coachable, but she has a different gear, and it's innate to her. So she's really energetic behind the dish. But I'll tell you one thing I didn't realize when we brought her over was also how good she was defensively. She's very diverse. Growing up, she learned all the different positions and things like that. So a very versatile player, gives you a lot, really high energy, and yeah, she can definitely swing it. And when we do challenge contests and things like that, that's when you really see her shine. So really, really excited to see her play this year.
Yeah, she'll fit obviously with this offense. Of course, you have Allie back, Allie Bloom, 341, 11 doubles, 38 RBIs. You got Peyton back, 359, 16 homers, 54. I mean, led you basically in every offensive category. Big to have. What have you seen from Allie and Peyton this fall here as they continue that development after the great seasons they had last year?
What I love about those two is they've continued to do, their strengths. It's very important to us that you keep your strengths strong, but your goal all the time is, all right, let me increase my heat map. Can I continue to have that exit velo in more areas in the zone? And they're working hard on that. And also they've increased their spray chart. So to add power to more places on the field, depending what they want to do. So even in our first practice yesterday, I could immediately see small little adjustments that Peyton had made to her swing over the way. Not big ones, and someone who didn't know her probably wouldn't see them, but really important to her because she's such a big thinker, and so she's adding game plans into her toolbox. So it was really cool to see somebody have that kind of work ethic and do it when no one else is watching. Really disciplined hitter. I'm a huge fan of hers. And then, of course, Allie's, her work ethic's off the chart. She's very pound for pound. She's very strong. She's surprising how hard she hits the ball, but she's really embraced the role of, hey, I can be your power hitter when I need to, but I can also be a good leadoff batter. So really, really out into her game, thinking the whole thing through. And that experience from last year has really paid off.
Is there a comp for Peyton as far as the type of hitter you've had because you've had a lot of great hitters, a lot of variety hitters. Is there a comp there, or is she like a one-on-one, one of one, as they like to say?
We've never had anyone with her type of swing. In fact, I don't know that I know very many people with her type of swing. In fact, I was scouting last year and might have been like one random hitter from Iowa State or something crazy. So, and I remember seeing it and I actually recorded this girl. I'm like, I don't even know who this girl is, but she's the first person I've seen look like Peyton. Her mindset though, she's very, very steady. So her steadiness reminds me a lot of, Erin Koffel in her later years was really steady. So I really like that part. She was really trying to drive in RBIs and not just hit home runs all the time. Peyton's always been a big team RBI type hitter. Certainly she goes from her home runs when she needs to, but when she needs to dial it in and, score the runner from second in a tough situation, she knows how to do that as well. So I've really been impressed with just her mindset overall. So that's a great question. I really, I'll spend some time thinking about it, but I don't want to waste your time on your podcast. But you definitely gave me something to think about. I'm going to really have to think about the type of hitter she reminds me of.
All right, next I got it booked. Next time you come on, that's going to be the
Yeah,
right
that's
off
a
the
good
bat.
question.
It's right up.
Yeah.
Well, because she's impressive. She kind of stood out to me. Like I'm not going to pretend I knew a lot about her when I watched her last year, but just this, I'm like, wow, what is this? She just seems like she's got all of the skills mentally and physically in this game for the
Yeah.
sport, which is, not easy to get, in this sport.
No, but I'll tell you, it starts with their parents, and not to, I don't like to talk a lot about, I try to keep people's personal stuff aside, but she has super cool parents, and her dad was a baseball player, and her mom was a volleyball player, and they've gone to every UK sport since she was a kid. But the cool thing about them is they talk the sport. They don't talk the mechanics. So Peyton never gets her mind is never stuck in the cage. And in today's day and age, everybody's stuck in the cage, right? Mentally. And Peyton's never stuck in the cage. And it just really started with them. And she's very receptive to coaching and she knows what to do with it when she gets it. And that really started with them. And it's continued with her time at Kentucky.
Like you've been developed and brought in great hitters. Like you mentioned Koffel, Kowalik, Brittany Cervantes. That's just naming a few, but they're all different variety.
Yeah.
What is the key to finding that? Because that's not easy. But you've been able to find great hitters, but of different variety. It's not like, oh, we have a consistent pattern here. It seems that you're able to adapt to whatever that strength of that hitter is.
Well, for us, we don't think there's one perfect swing. It's all about how the person's body wants to move and then what they're good at. So we really try to first learn the person. And then after that, we try to help them develop whatever their skill set is. And it actually took me a while to learn that. When I was really young, I was like, oh, we're going to do mechanics first and we're going to do all this. And it just really didn't work as well. And so when years ago, Coach Himes is our hitting coach. So years ago, Coach Himes, who was an elite hitter in her own right, we were like, listen, we're gonna work backwards. So this is the end product. This is what the person's trying to produce on the field. And like, how can Peyton get that way? How can Maddie get that way? How can that sort of thing? And then we work backwards from there. And we really try to, every person has value and they're all different. So we try to maximize their value both as a person, as a player, and then obviously as an athlete. And it takes a lot of time to do it that way, but that's the way we prefer to do it.
And one of the things too is usually that hitter blossoms and it comes. And next thing you know, the people outside the program are like, "Whoa, where did that come from?"
Yeah.
So with that in mind, who are some other the players, either returners or new faces, that you think will stand out offensively to complement Peyton and Allie? And of course, we've talked about Carly, but who are some of the others you're looking to see have production this year?
Well, Carissa Hamilton really had some key hits for us last year in some in really big moments. And if she doesn't come up with the type of hits that she has, we probably weren't even going to be in the postseason. So she's somebody that at times offensively is overlooked because the consistency hasn't been there in the past. And she's had key moments. The one thing I've been impressed with her work this off season is she's really dialed into just becoming a pro type hitter. Really, instead of worrying about my swing, she's really thinking about how to drive in runs, what's best for the team, kind of thing. And been really impressed with her. So I think she's going to have some really key moments for us. I am the biggest Maddie Clark fan out there, and we didn't see as much of her last year, or people didn't hear as much about her because she missed the first 20 or so games with an injury. So she was never able to build up that stat base and things like that for people to notice her. But I think she's such a good softball player. Really smart mind, really great energy. Big fan of her. She can play every position on the field. And I think she at times last year really turned some heads, but she's not a household name yet just because she doesn't have that volume of work like some of the other people that you see all the time on TV. So those two really come to mind and from the returning standpoint. Our freshmen are very good offensively. Maddie Anson, MJ, she is a really good hitter. She's got a natural gear to her. She's somebody now. She's right-handed, so in this way they're nothing alike, but she's kind of like a Kowalik to me from a mindset standpoint, or a Cervantes. Like Cervantes and Kowalik remind me of each other a little bit because they listen to us, but they don't listen too much. So they really have this instinct about them, and they can continue to play with that instinct. Big game players really know how to make things happen, and they just want to win softball games. So MJ is somebody from a freshman standpoint. If she's comfortable, I really expect that she's going to turn some heads this year. So really good with her. Abby Hammond, we talk about her as a pitcher, but she's an elite batter. She's a great two-way player, and she's I expect really big things out of her. And obviously in center field right now, looking like we'll probably have another freshman out there, and Alexa Riddell, and she's very strong. So I feel good about them. And then one person I haven't mentioned that is one of the best defensive players that I've ever coached is Emery Donaldson. And Emery is somebody who really good team speed, really good situational mind, knows the game, is a good batter, and she's had some injuries off and on, and is really right now peaking physically. So really looking forward to seeing what she can do on the field.
Sounds like you like this freshman class a lot, and
I do.
they're gonna have to contribute right away.
Well, they're going to have to.
Yeah.
But the cool thing about that is they know that they have to, but they're okay with it. And the other thing is, if you look at the pedigree of the players on our team, they like Carson won a national championship at an elite travel ball level. Nutter won a national championship as at the elite travel ball level. You're looking at players on our team at Final Four finishes at Alliance and national championships at Alliance. So the players on our team have a very high pedigree. They haven't gotten the press for whatever reason, but some of that just could be their demeanor and things like that. And they're not really that big on social media. So, but the pedigree on this team from a championship standpoint is very high. And that's something that continually goes unnoticed.
So with someone like an Abby Hammond, who's going to do two-way, be a pitcher and a
Mhm.
hitter, how do you manage that, and make sure it's not an overload for her, whether it be pitching too much or hitting too much, and of course, she's got responsibility on both sides. How do you manage somebody like that who can excel and help you in both pitching and hitting?
Well, luckily she has worked her tail off since she was younger physically. So from a strength standpoint, she's incredibly strong physically. So the workload from a physical standpoint, she can handle it at a pretty high volume because that she's a worker. And she can is a worker physically. It's really impressive. The key is they talk all the time in baseball pitching is about stress innings. And that's always the key with freshman pitchers because freshman pitchers get hurt a lot across the country. Some of it is the wear and tear of all the work that they've done in travel ball and stuff coming into colleges, and that's kind of a national issue. But some of it is just because at the youth level, they can chuck the ball pretty much anywhere they want to, and they're going to get a strike called by No offense to umpires at the youth level, but you do get what you pay for. And then, and then the batters have no plan whatsoever. So they're just swinging all over the place. So they don't have as many stress innings. But when you get into college now, all of a sudden every pitch matters. You throw a fatty down the middle of the plate and this kid isn't mishitting it. She's going to hit it right back at your teeth or over the fence. The fouling off of pitches is unreal. Like kids aren't just coming up with weak ground balls or cheesy infield pop-ups. They're fouling off pitches so they can get something to drive. So when you're getting in a stress pitching standpoint, I think it's really important to be mindful of where is the pitcher there, because when their stress starts getting at a high level, then you have to start worrying about, are they going to start over pitching, and then you start to have physical issues. So we're going to start there in that, but I have no doubt she can handle the volume of a normal season.
I've seen two-way players. Some of them will play a position and can come right in and pitch and right there and warm up and good to go. Some need to come out and do a bullpen session before coming in. Have we figured out what does she need to do? Is that something that's still in a learning curve there as far as figuring out how to use her and when to use her and how to get her ready to perform at a high level in whatever role you have her doing?
Well, I think she's the type. She actually reminds me a little bit of, I'm pretty sure she's one of the few people left that understand that Lisa Fernandez is probably the GOAT. And and she's built similarly and stuff like that. And she's more in her, if I was to compare her to a player, she's more on that. I'm not saying she's a GOAT yet, but I'm saying that's her style of play. And she would want the ball. In fact, I would have to tell her, hey, you probably should take a few warm-up pitches before
Okay.
you whip your pitch in here at the velo you're doing it. So but so she's the type that I have no doubt that she's going to go in, want the ball, and she can perform right away. The key with her is going to be we better she's going to need to make sure that she stays her process just so that she doesn't overwork it or get an arm injury or something like that.
How do you feel about your defense here as you get going in practices? What are some things you're looking forward to learning about your defense, or do you think you have most of that answered, or is that still things that will be answered into the first few weeks of the season?
I don't have it answered yet, and I'll tell you, you probably asked me on the wrong day because I just came from. Now, granted, it was our second practice. So excited to be outside. But I am big on defense and base running. The identity of Kentucky softball has always been like a hard-nosed, gritty team. And we have always snuck wins where we've been the underdog most
Sure.
of our life and most of our games. And so you have to play elite level defense so that you don't let the runs get unmanageable. And we're not there yet. I can be honest with you. And so that's going to be something we're continuing to focus there. The work is there, which is nice because it has to start the work. If a kid does not have work ethic, forget it. They're never going to be a good defensive player, or they're going to be, inconsistent. And that is not something, I'm not into inconsistent play. So, the work ethic's there, the desire to be good is there, and they're putting in the reps, but we're not quite there yet. So obviously we have to get it. We have to be more reliable from a defensive standpoint. If my pitchers induce a weak ground ball to the left side of the field, it has to get fielded. And because you can't let them, and that, with all these good hitters behind them, if the pitcher does that, then you've got to reward them with it with an out. So we got to make sure that those type of things are happening.
No doubt. I mean, that's the key to helping your pitching staff, too.
Yeah.
It gets lost in
Yeah.
the shuffle.
Well, I don't know, I haven't looked on 643 or whatever, but I don't know what the average strikeout rate is in the SEC, but I can, maybe Carlin Pickens is whipping in 10, 11, 12. I mean, I don't know what her rate is, but let's be real. You're not, a pitcher's not regularly going to be getting 10, 11, 12
Right.
strikeouts in a game. You've got to play defense behind them. I mean, there's just no way around it.
That's probably accurate. Carlin Pickett's probably in her own category there,
Probably.
throwing
I mean, I'm
70
sure some
plus.
other.
A
Yeah.
few others. We'll leave room for a few others on that. You mentioned the SEC. What's it been like now having this SEC? We've being a part of this with this mega league this past year. With obviously you have Oklahoma and Texas added in there, and just the added strength. It's always been strong, but now it's like at a different level on its own.
It's a different level. Obviously, there are great teams in other leagues, no question. And we've talked about this before. It's the top to bottom. It's the daily grind that makes the SEC so special. It's the fact that you don't ever go, oh, thank God thank goodness I'm going to Georgia this weekend to play. Like there's never a team where you're like, oh my goodness, it's an easy weekend. Like 100% of your weekends are challenging no matter what year it is you're playing. But it makes it exciting. It reminds me a lot of the NFL. That's what I love about the SEC. So the SEC coaches, when we get together, we certainly want to beat each other in between the white lines, but we're always trying to think of ways, how are we going to separate our league ahead of everybody else? And so in that way, that's the part that reminds me of the NFL. We're always trying to find ways, how do we get more popular on TV? How do we push the limit of all these other things? Because we do have the TV backing and the AD backing and things like that. So we'd like to consider ourselves top to bottom, the leaders in the sport where there are other leaders, there's not as many as there are in our league. The coolest thing about it is the fan bases, no matter where you go, they all have their own style, but it's a real thing. You every Saturday and Sunday will be packed no matter where you go, and that is so cool. I mean, you play your whole life for something like that. I think the players who get to play in the SEC who have that opportunity, really, it's just such a cool thing. Um, the thing that has been crazy to me is Grace Ballman and I were talking about this. This was 2 or 3 years ago. We're like, okay, when Grace started in the SEC as a freshman, in game she was throwing 65, 66, and she was in the top echelon of power in the league. By the time she graduated, that would have been the middle top of the bottom third of the league in terms of just the power and things like that if you didn't keep up and increase your speed level. So the power of the athletes alone is phenomenal. And then just the power of, I mean, the home runs, I guarantee you the home runs are significantly higher now, even though the pitching is better. It's just the strength of the athletes and obviously the coaching and the pitching staffs and everything. It's, I mean, not just pitching staffs, but coaching staffs, we have more of them. We have more support. You have other types of personnel working with them. Just the whole thing
Right.
has really exploded, which I would have never, gosh, I couldn't have anticipated that years and years ago when I got in the league.
No. Do you remember the turning point when you saw it start to change and go in that direction?
Well, the turning point in the SEC, when I first got into the SEC, the same couple of teams, it's like the same two or three teams were always the winner of the league and always won the tournament.
Right.
And then you started to see a couple of other teams sneak in there, and we started to win some other games. Like we started to have 500 records and then make the postseason. And so we went from a league that like 6 to 8 teams were making the tournament. And then all of a sudden you're seeing 9 teams make the tournament, 10 teams make the tournament. And then you're starting to see other teams win the league, win the whatever. When you started to see the possibility of somebody other than the first three, coaches started to get fired. When the coaches started to get fired, that's when everything changed. Because if you want to keep your job, you better win. And so, but then ADs were like, well, we can't fire you if we don't support you. So then coaches would be let go, more money, more support, and everything would be put in the program. And then, you started to see this just skyrocketing. So now, like assistant coaches are making what head coaches
Sure.
used to. So we are under the pressure cooker all the time. But it's when the pressure cooker started is when you started to see things turn. And then obviously ESPN. TV is the biggest. So the pressure of having to perform and then just as a support of the TV, putting the game on national TV, those have been, in my opinion, those are the two driving forces.
In a lot of ways, right. Now you're treated almost like football does get treated to some extent, basketball and
Yes.
baseball, right? Where you're kind of in the microscope, but that's it is. I remember it, that's kind of what you were fighting for. Like you wanted just that, respect, and now you're getting it, which there's good and bad that comes with it, but that's been part of it.
Well, it's funny you say that. This is going, I'm about to say, what do our kids say? This is a hot take. I guess this could be something that could get me in trouble. I think you nailed it. So I didn't really understand equity until I actually came to the SEC or came to Kentucky, which is interesting because I played softball in Massachusetts. So it's a very liberal area, very this is the part that I probably shouldn't be saying this live, but it was when I came to Kentucky, and then each year the support started to increase. But when the support increases, then the expectation level was going up. But to me, that was what I wanted.
Right.
That was equity. So I don't want to not have anything and then people just be okay with me losing and not having my job, and then but if you're going to have this expectation, you have to support it at a financial level that's respectable for the athlete. So that pressure in itself to me is closer to equity than talking a big game but not supporting it financially. And so I didn't really understand that until I started playing in the SEC and ADs and universities and stuff started putting more money into it.
Well,
So the pressure matters.
but the SEC's always been in front of that as far as supporting
Yep.
all the sports.
Hmm.
I mean, you just seen in your own campus with Kentucky volleyball and the explosion they've had this decade, winning a national title, just played for another one. You just had an all SEC national title game in volleyball. Who would have
Yeah,
thought?
crazy.
Like, I mean, there are people in the Midwest are probably like, can't believe that, right? Like, they thought this was their sport in volleyball and all that. And then we see that baseball has become a giant in the
Mhm.
SEC. Softball's become a giant. It's been across the board. And the SEC's always been ahead of the curve, I feel like, and doesn't get enough credit for that for all the other sports. It's not just like, hey, it's not just football. Kentucky's a great example. I'm sure a lot of the perception maybe 2 decades ago, oh, it's just basketball. They care. Now it's every sport is excelling there. And then you get with football is the success. And now you got Coach Stein coming in and the excitement there. You probably don't get somebody like Coach Stein 20 years ago, but they do now
Right.
because people respect. It's a big growth.
Oh, it's been tremendous. Now, like I said, here's the point about ESPN. It wasn't always that way,
Sure.
but when people started to see the value of the game on TV and things like that, and the fan bases, I mean, you'll go to a volleyball game and there'll be 4, 5 thousand, 7,000, 8,000. I don't, in big games it'll sell out, and that wasn't the case before, but now people are on board. So these gorgeous stadiums, but TV, that's where TV has come in. So TV is a big driver too, because what university wants to have their team on national TV in a facility that's
Sure.
not up to par, and no fans in the stands, right? So it's all been this really cool driving force. And sure, there's pressure with it, but without pressure, you can't really have anything. So it's definitely, that's to me been the biggest change in the SEC.
And the exposure, like I could catch
Yeah.
Kentucky game pretty much every night now.
Mhm.
Whereas 20 years ago it was hard to find games in general. So
Yeah, and to your point, I'm sorry to interrupt. I was just thinking about this. When I first started recruiting, travel ball wasn't as big in the South.
sure.
In fact, the state of Georgia, I am about to give my age up right here, but the state of Georgia was still playing slow pitch when I first started coaching. And, there weren't travel ball organizations at the highest level in the South. They all existed in California and things like that. And there were some teams up north, but not at the level that there is now. And then, kids start to see the game on TV, SEC starts putting money, and then the whole South has exploded. And then it trickles into other leagues and other players and things like that. So, yes, the SEC is great, but just to create that exposure, and then you see, it definitely affects the sport in general.
No doubt. No
Mhm.
doubt. A few other things here. The committee this year will be seating 32 teams versus
Yep.
16. Your reaction to that? Volleyball start and women's soccer kind of started it. Now it'll be turned over to softball there. Your reaction to going to 32 seeds?
Well, I mean, obviously, you want to have a truer tournament. I'm curious to see how it's going to go. I mean, I think they have a really hard time once you start getting into 18, 19, 20, 25, 32. So I think that in general is I think it's going to be tough to seed. With that said, I mean, I definitely see the value of people thinking that's going to happen. One of the things that I've always been a proponent of is I'm such a softball purist from the standpoint is I want teams from the state of New York to be able to play softball because think about how many TVs there are. I want there to be regionals in Chicago and I want there to, because I want exposure in big cities as well. And those big cities exist in climates that aren't really conducive to the sport of softball early in February, early in March. So I really appreciate the seating of 1 through 32, but I cannot believe that they also did not take care of it on the front end. So all we're doing is handing the keys of the castle to more people in warm weather with more money. Granted, I'm in one of those places. So from a personal standpoint, hey, go Kentucky. But from a softball purist standpoint, now I think it's really important for the powers that be to really take care of the starting date of the sport so that we can have more teams have an honest, pure opportunity to be able to put themselves in a position to get one of those higher seeds so that the sport can be represented in the postseason across the country and not in just a few spots.
What would be an ideal starting date for you?
Well, I mean, I mean, the fact that we start in February is insane. I mean, we start playing before Major League Baseball reports to spring training. I mean, let's think about that. So that's nuts. Okay, so what you have to look at is, okay, so we are now down to the Power Four, correct?
Yep.
In at least in one of the Power Four leagues and many teams in the other Power Four leagues, they will start their first 20 to 25 games on the road.
Right.
And you have to win those games to put yourself in a position to host in the postseason. So here are these teams. They're flying across the country with all of the things that you have to do. You're playing 25 games on the road with all the stress of travel and all that sort of stuff. So, to answer your question, you should not have a sport where one of your four Power Four leagues, all of them have to start their first 20 games on the road. While as in the other warm weather teams, they can start 20 games at home. Now, when you couple that with the fact that in the sport of softball, our equation does not allow for a home and away. There's no bump for home and away. You don't get any, like in baseball, there are bonus points. Like
Right.
a win away is worth more than a win at home. In softball, we don't have that.
Sure.
So we're flying away, we're playing our games on the road, and you don't even get a bonus. There's no sort of like, so the answer to the question is we definitely should be starting in March.
Baseball's been
Um,
trying to push that. Baseball, I know
yes.
that's been something they've been trying to push a March start and maybe a July, finish around the World
Yeah.
Series around July. So they've been pushed. So it sounds like you would be something in favor of that from a softball standpoint, similar to what
Oh, you
baseball
have
can
to.
do.
Well, if
Yeah,
you want a fair sport, you need
sure.
to. Now, if we don't care if it's fair, keep it going the way it is. But, and I know there's some finance arguments and things like that, like, but at the end of the day, spending that kind of money to travel, the first 20 games away is also very expensive. So I think the spending can be figured out sort of situation. But in my opinion, if we want the sport to be more representative nationally, we need to have a better start date. It's not equitable. It's not fair. Or we need to, if we're going to continue with this system, there should be some sort of equation. The fact that we're one of the few sports that don't take home and away into consideration is kind of mind blowing to me, to be totally honest with you. So, love the seating, but would love to see us take care of the front end so that more teams have an opportunity to host. So, in my opinion, you're going to have the overwhelming majority of the 32 teams will be in warm weather. Well, of the host teams, and then whatever are going to be in the warm weather.
Yeah, no, and I agree, but don't get me started on the home away metrics and all that.
Oh, it's
We
money
can
grab.
spend hours on that.
Yeah.
But I've just figured out that is why we get emails and messages to have you on because of opinions like that. People love hearing your thoughts on this, and they have sent here some topics on the rules. This is something that people have reached
Uh,
out. They want your opinions on it. So here we go. Double base. Part of softball now. Double base.
I'm like a neutral party on the double bass. I think it's a non-issue that we play with a double bass in international play. I've never seen it affect anybody. It's just something you need to teach people when they're younger. If it does reduce some of it hopefully will reduce some of the like the collisions we have at first base. So that's pretty cool. I know some people think that from an umpire standpoint, we're asking them to look at too broad of a view, but at our level, we have instant replay. And now that you can get your challenge back, I think that's less of an argument to not have it sort of situation. So in my opinion, I'm not really one of those people that was strong either way, but I'm kind of like a why not?
I'm guilty. I was one of those that talked about, are we making this too complicated for the umpires? They have, we give them enough complications as it is. But you're saying, no, no, it's not, that shouldn't be that complicated. We have replay to do that, to help them out in that. So you don't think that's an issue?
No, and I also don't think it's an issue because it's not complicated in international play and it's
Sure.
not complicated at youth play. So why all of a sudden is it more complicated for the individuals who are the best? Like the collegiate umpires, as much as I like to yell at them and whatever, they are the best. They're the best of the best. So like for me, I think that they can handle the double base fine. And like I said, now that you can get the challenge back, it's less of an issue because, nothing is more infuriating than using your challenge in the first inning on a safe out call at first base. But now that you can get it back, if there's a little bit of issue, we can go to replay pretty quick.
See, this is why you're perfect on the pod. That was the second one. Retaining of the review of the challenge. You like it clearly.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I like it because you get it back, and if not, you lose it, sort of situation. I forget what the ice hockey thing is. That's pretty cool. I'll have to get back to you on that. I mean, there's actually a penalty when you use it. What is the ice hockey thing? There's a 2 minute minor. Like, so
Yeah.
I don't like the frivolous thing from the time point, but that would probably blow people's mind. But I do appreciate that you get it back from the standpoint of it, because like I said, there's nothing more infuriating than wondering if I should use my challenge in the first inning, the leadoff batter, where the umpire wasn't ready for the speed of wasn't ready for the game.
Sure. Sure. I've had some coaches tell me about the double base. One of the things they've realized is they've got to remind the players about the double base and kind of reteach it a little bit too, because they're used to a certain habit here at the collegiate level with the one base. Is that something you as a staff kind of keep an eye on to see the players don't get caught up into maybe some old habits there that might get them from a base running standpoint?
Oh, I mean, they do it. And in fact, today, part of our base running routine is we had to add it in. And yes, there's a learning curve. But I mean, I watch the sport of we have a really good gymnastics team, fun to watch. SEC gymnastics, huge fan.
No, yeah.
Anyway, I mean, this girl's doing a double backflip, something, something, something on a balance beam into a whatever, and you're telling me we can't figure out the double base? I mean, like that to me, it's not much of an argument. I mean, we can do it. And yes, I'm with you. They're going to fall back on old habits, but they do that on everything, relays. Hey, there's a
Sure.
runner on second. You might want to try to hit behind him, and they're still ripping it to the left side of the field. I mean, like that is all the time. So, I mean, but the evolution of the sport is a good thing for sure.
Okay, couple last ones. They clarified the obstruction this summer. They tried to clarify it a little bit more. Did you like how they clarified it? Do you think there's still work to be done with the obstruction? Where are you on the obstruction right now?
Well, obstruction, how they call obstruction, absolutely has ruined the sport, in my opinion. That thing with the Texas and the World Series, I mean, absolutely blew my mind.
Yeah,
So, and unnecessary, by the way. With that said, I mean, the rules seem to free it up a little bit, which is great. It seems to me that it's going back to what it was before, to be totally honest with you. So, but if that, in my opinion, what we were doing before was just way too nitpicky on the situation and in any type of play that was aggressive. I mean, the fact that somebody's toe could be in the line and then
yeah,
on replay they were calling, I mean, that's absurd. So if this is going to cure all those problems, I'm a big fan.
yeah. Thoughts. That's my thoughts. Hopefully so. Hopefully so. Less of
Yeah.
those. Last one. This was interesting. No longer you could protest after a game. It's going to be all protests now are during games, which was interesting. People have asked me about that for clarification. What does that mean? Like, what's your reaction to that from a protesting standpoint? I don't know if you've ever been involved in a protest or not, but it is
Well,
you.
I have been involved with protests. I will say this, a couple things my guess would be that was a financial decision. So that if there was a protest after a game and somebody won the protest and you had to drive back into a locale, spend money, whatever, traveling to finish a game. So I'm assuming that was a financial decision. Don't know, but assuming that. I will tell you that most protests fail
Right.
because people don't know how to protest. So in my mind, that means more protests are going to fail than because that's why usually protests do not happen because of the failure rate. So, what is my opinion about it? Honestly, I think it should be handled at the field for the travel reason and all that sort of stuff, and doing it after the fact. Now, here's the issue. I don't play at the, so our rule book gets used for all the levels. Like for, so what I don't know, so like at the D3 level, do they not have somebody they can call on the phone and say, we need to solve this right now? I don't know if that's going to be an issue with them. But on the flip side, they can't handle the finances of traveling back and doing whatever. And, they're always in a pinch financially. So I think that most protests then will be complete, it'll be a failure.
All right, very good. See, there you go. We got them all answered. Done. Fan base. This is why from now on in the broadcast, I'm just gonna quote you and say this is what Coach Lawson thinks, and I agree. That's what I'm gonna go.
Yeah, I'll probably get yelled at in some tweets and some not, some, but it's okay. I've learned, I'm old now, so I figured I can handle it.
I think you'll be fine. I'll let you go on this. Obviously, you continue to have practices here, and then you get to go on the season with a tough schedule. By the way, going out west to start the season, part of a tough schedule. What are you looking forward to finding out about this group, and maybe some key questions you have in your mind that will help kind of determine how 2026 Wildcats are defined?
Well, I'll tell you, this fall, one thing I was not pleased with is when we played a Division One team, we didn't go out to dominate. We were just playing softball like it was a practice. And we have to turn that around. Like we have to play with the intent of dominating, with the hungriness. And one of the pedigree that we have is great, but all they know is winning. So they don't understand that no matter who you play has that same, there's awesome players no matter who you play. And so for me, the question that we have to answer is, can that sort of desire, that passion, that we need to dial it up, and we need to go out there like it's the last softball game we're ever going to play, as opposed to this is just one of 300 that I'm going to play over the summer, which is kind of the vibe that I was getting. So to me, that is the question. And so I'm really excited about our schedule because we're starting out in San Diego. Those are great teams. San Diego State by themselves is a handful to deal with. And so we'll have a really good idea of the type of mindset that we have. And then we go straight to Stanford and we play a bunch of elite teams. Well, actually in between, we have a postseason opponent at Santa Barbara. So no, yes, Santa Barbara. So awesome coach, awesome team, postseason team, and then we're heading up to Stanford. So we'll know right away what type of team we have.
Get to see Joe Evans again.
Yeah, I love Jo. She's just brilliant. Such an icon in the sport, but really excited and a really good team. So I am excited to see who we are because I don't think we've seen it yet.
Well, we look forward to seeing your team play. I know a lot of Kentucky fans will as well. Rachel Lawson joining us here and In the Circle at D1 Softball. Coach, always a pleasure. I appreciate you. You've come on over the years. I think we've like 8, 9 years you've been coming on. And like I said, fans love hearing your thoughts and your opinions, and they like watching your teams. Good luck this season. I'm sure we'll cross paths, but always thanks for taking the time to talk to us here on In the Circle.
Well, thank you. And thanks for everything you do for softball. I don't say that enough. So really, really cool stuff. I love it. But thanks a lot.